Oh, hello. I didn't know we were having guests. I would have cleaned up. There. Isn't that nicer? It's a lot better. Oh, there. Perfect.
Oh.
Hi. My name's Eric. E-R-I-C. Eric. And I'm the host of Talking with Famous People. It is such a joy to have you here with us today to talk about the word resolve. You know, each of us in life encounters difficulties, problems, barriers, challenges. Sometimes those challenges are people. Other times they're physical obstacles. Still other times it can be a problem with one's own body, like a disease. Well, friends, today I'm here to talk about a word that's relevant to all of those things. And that word is resolve. What does it mean to resolve? What does it mean to have resolve? What are some of the different words that we use that mean the same thing as resolve? What are some of the different ways in which we use the word resolve? These are all questions that we hope to answer today here on Talking with Famous People. Hi, Harry Balzac. I bet that's not really your name. The reason is because although both of those names are actual names, when combined, it elicits thoughts of a hairy ball sack, namely a scrotum. So, I could either call you HB or I could simply call you scrotum. Which would you prefer? Yeah, I'm good at innuendos. For example, when Bart Simpson called Moe's Bar and asked for Amanda, and Moe said, well, what's Amanda's last name? And Bart Simpson said, Hug and Kiss. I don't think I would have been fooled by that. I wouldn't have, in Moe fashion, said, Amanda Hug and Kiss? I need Amanda Hug and Kiss? Is there Amanda Hug and Kiss here? But Moe's always been very susceptible to those kind of jokes. He's what you might call gullible. If my last name were Hug and Kiss and I had a daughter, I definitely wouldn't name her Amanda.
Kind of cute.
If my last name were Hug and Kiss, I guess I'd name her. Don't make fun of my last name, Hug and Kiss. Don't make fun of my last name is a long first name, though.
That is.
Doan. It's like D-O-A-N-A. Doname, Mayfune. Dona Umeo, find out my name. Where's George Foreman? Well, probably at home, enjoying the gentle breeze that blows through his gazebo into his outdoor patio area.
Is that where he grills?
That's where he grills, yeah. He does grill outside mostly. And he's got a lot of kids, so presumably they're always around saying, hey, Dad, why did you have so many kids and name us all George? We need Resolve Carpet Cleaner Strong Stuff. SCP-1762 is my favorite. There's many different ways in which we use the word resolve, right? So I was struck by the use of it today in a show I was watching, in which the boy whose family, except for his sister, has all been murdered by a demon, and whose sister has been not quite murdered by a demon and therefore turned half demon herself. That this boy, when he seeks to be trained in the art of demon slaying from an old master who lives at the foot of the mountain, as old masters typically do, has his resolve questioned. Well, says the old master, if you really want to join the demon slaying forces, then you need to have adequate resolve, right? The Japanese are huge on resolve, guts, commitment, clarity of path, NISE, you know? I have clarity about what I'm going to do, and I have resolve regarding it.
True.
One of the reasons, I mean, I've called him an ISTJ. I think it's very possible he's ISTJ. I think he probably is an ISTJ. He's an ISTJ who does occasional bits of creative endeavor and enjoys that a lot. Cameron also does occasional bits of creative endeavor and enjoys it a lot. The difference is Curtis seems too effing knowledgeable to be an ISTJ. I would guess he's beta quadra, but he could be an ISTJ though. It's not impossible. It's not impossible to imagine that he's an ISTJ. But I think I don't know. Yeah. So, okay. So in this thing, they talk about the amount of resolve a person needs in order to be qualified to even begin to study under this person, right? And I remember in Naruto Shippuden when Rock Lee wanted to learn the taijutsu whirlwind from the old master. He had to sit all day long in the rain for 3 days and bring rice foods for the master every day. And finally the master said, okay, you're so persistent. You made me want to go. Okay, fine. So the thing about that is, of course, that's all well and good if, in fact, the people you're dealing with share a similar value of clarity of purpose and efficacy of reaching that goal. But it's really a form of ontological violence towards ENTPs, at least, who want to play at everything. You know, we don't want to be a specialist. It seems like Japan highly values specialization and countervalues non-specialization unless it's really a form of being a specialist. Like, he's a specialist by being good at everything is one specialist in Japanese understanding of things. But you need a hook to get you interested in anime. I mean, watch Fire Force, Winston's mom. It made #1 on my list.
Fire Force is great. I like Fire Force. It's fun too.
Yeah.
It's not just like, because some animes can be pretty heavy.
Right.
So Fire Force is a nice combination of, like, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it pokes fun at, tropes that happen in anime.
But it also doesn't render itself insignificant accordingly.
No.
I've watched, Winston's mom, you'd probably like Death Note a lot.
I can see it.
That seems like an INTJ show, you know?
Yeah, and possibly Attack on Titan, too.
I mean, a lot of people would probably, if you were going to ask 100 anime fans, if you were to go up to them and say, I've never watched an anime before, what do you recommend? Probably the highest number of results you get out of that 100, which would not be a majority, but would be for Attack on Titan. It is really It's almost shocking to the eyes the first time you see these titans
Yeah.
running around.
Yeah.
These giant, weird-looking kind of potato bug people. Can you briefly explain what you mean when you say ontological? Well, in the case of talking about ontological violence or ontological assault, it means pressuring people to adhere to mores that run counter to their nature. So, for example, and or critiquing people about things that are not behaviors. So, for example, if I have a problem with fat people, for example, that would be I'd be engaged in sort of an ontological war against certain individual people based on this status that I attribute to them, that assumes a lot of shit and confer upon them that that comprises a kind of ontological colonialism. So the thing is, the most famous kind of ontological assault or ontological violence is racism. That's the one that everybody gets all up in arms about. But it's just one example of a whole shit ton of that kind of things, all of which are equally stupid. Racism is not any worse than not liking fat people. Racism is not any worse than hating those damn Republicans. You know, it's exactly the same thing. Racism is not any different than fixating on hypergamy. If you're talking about hypergamy a lot, then you have assigned to women the status you are slave to your reproductive drives and your biology. You know, typism is different, because with typism, we try to address the question, how can we meaningfully categorize people ontologically in a way that's not ontologically assaultive? Our current attempts to be objective about ontology result in the normativization of arbitrarily assigned attributes as per the Big Five in IQ. But there's a better alternative. It turns out people genuinely are different. But the reason they're different is because they're strategically prioritized towards one particular being tactic. Tactic to accomplish what, Eric? Well, to accomplish the prime directive, closing the gap between map and territory. So the way that plays out is an ESFP is configured to maximally close the gap between map and territory by reducing the significance of the map and by being willing to change the map at a moment's notice as the territory changes, to not rely upon the map. That's how they avoid the crisis, which is map told me this, territory is different. That's the fundamental crisis that people have in the world. And we have a variety of different tactics to avoid that. 16 precisely. 16 different configurational approaches to that question. And the why is there something other than nothing is one question of ontology, but that's a question, right? When you're asking what I'm referring to when I'm talking about ontology, which is a different question than what questions does the study of ontology ask, what I'm referring to is your identity that is complete, as opposed to the representative symbols of your identity. Now, there are some useful sort of groupings that we can put onto people that are useful, that ultimately end up being part of that person's identity, but not necessarily part of that person's ontology. So, for example, to say somebody is a commercial airline pilot is to talk about their identity, not their ontology. Now, if you say, and therefore he's a drunk, because everybody knows all commercial airline pilots are drunk, now you made airline pilot into an ontological label, and you engaged in ontological assault against that individual by assuming that he represents your symbols of of ontology, which, in other words, your identity words, that he is subsumed by your words about him. Is the question, what's the meaning of the universe, a complicated question? I mean, I would say it's a question that needs additional information. What's the meaning of the universe to whom? I mean, and in what context are obviously important questions. So what does the word the universe mean? It means all the physical reality that we can map. It's often used additionally to include all of the reality that we can map in general, which includes metaphysical reality. But what people typically mean when they ask something like, what's the meaning of life, is they want an answer that's formed teleologically. In other words, why has life been purposed and by whom? Or more specifically, what is the purpose of my life and how do I determine that that purpose exists beyond or besides just what I want? These kind of questions are underlying moral questions as well, obviously, because whether or not you are intended by some God to be, or whether you have to understand your purpose from a different teleological perspective, is a question everybody has to deal with. Well, it's more like Legends Fall. You have a good way of putting it there, except I change it slightly. You say ontological assault equals the accusation that you're not fitting my map. Stop doing that. Instead, it's you're not fitting my map. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah. Well put.
If you're critiquing behavior, like your behavior is not fitting my map, then that should be resolvable between the two people. Well, what do you mean my behavior is not fitting your map? It's my behavior. Well, yeah, but you're punching me in the face. Okay, well, that's easy to resolve. The behavior is the problem. The thing is, behavioral critiques in general are legitimate because they don't say to a person, there's something wrong with you. They say to the person, they imply to the person, there's nothing wrong with you, but there's something wrong with this behavior. Why are you deviating from your normal good? Which is the proper sort of frame of reference to have towards these things.
I mean, when I think of like anything that's ontological and upsetting, I think about how much resolve I've actually gotten since being typed right. Like before I was like trying to.
What you got was resolution, but you may have also gotten resolve. Okay, but you may have also gotten resolve.
I do feel like it got resolved in some way because I was trying to like. It's not that I was trying to. I would just like look at the descriptions of the people of the types that I was being typed as, and it was like, yeah, I do that sometimes, but I don't feel like I do that all the time, and it was just kept on. I just feel more settled.
Well, I mean, you've been subject to a lot of ontological assault.
Yeah.
So being with an ESTJ, the ESTJ wanted to exist in a non-ontological space, but simply a behavioral space. In other words, I'm going to evaluate you based on your behaviors, and we can talk about which of your behaviors are acceptable or not based on some sort of preponderance of the evidence, which is all well and good, except you're not taking into account that one person owns their own behaviors and the other person doesn't. So it's like, they were very much on Rachel about smoking weed all the time because some expert had told them that the weed is not good for her mental health. She was telling them that's bullshit. And they decided to engage in ontological assault by thinking that the fact that an expert agreed with them justified them compelling her ontology into being a behavior that they could critique and judge and respond to. But the reality is her wanting to smoke weed and finding it part of her temporal bargaining engagement is part of her ontology. In other words, we all have our temporal bargaining. You might say, "Oh, Jesus, Eric, what's wrong with you? You smoke cigarettes all the time, blah, blah, blah." Everybody has something like that. It's just that some people have things that aren't considered bad or vices by other people. So, like, if I'm an ESTJ, my thing might be going around the yard and squirting weeds with weed killer. And people are just going to think, well, that's not a bad thing. He's doing something useful right there. Well, he's tweaking out on something. That's all he's doing. It might not appear as bad to you because it doesn't have this link to a health harm directly, but it's still their little thing, Everybody's got their thing. And the problem is that we assume that because if your thing were my thing, it would be a big problem for me, that it must be a big problem for you. So it's like, I can't drink alcohol. If you were to say something like, "Oh, I'm going out to drink with my friends tonight," I might think to myself, sort of like, "Ooh, I wonder if that person has a problem." But the reality is, I wouldn't dare say something like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. It'll fuck up your life." Because just because it fucked up my life doesn't mean it's going to fuck up yours. Hi, Cameron. Nice to see you. How's it going?
How was your holiday celebrations? Did we see him before Christmas, right?
No, it was after Christmas.
Yeah.
The blob constituents ontologies hold that objects have an internal structure. Okay, so look, this is what I'm talking about is in that philosophy does. I'm glad you quoted that, Winston's mom. This is what philosophy does that bugs me. I'm using the term ontology as something that's operationalized. In other words, to make meaningful distinctions between experience, meaning independent of individuals, identity, that is to say meanings linked to individuals, and ontology, which is to say being. I make those distinctions because it's a clear, it gives clear normative advice. For example, in a relationship, behavioral critiques are legal. Like, I don't like it when you leave the cereal in the bowl but don't put water in it, because then later it's really hard to get out. This is something I said to Rachel the other day, basically. That kind of critique is okay because it's not saying there's something wrong with you. It's something specific that I'm hoping I can actually get a behavior change on. It's something that I might be guilty of occasionally too, and expect to hold myself accountable for as well. And if I do that too, then I would expect to get busted for it. Do we want a scooter tonight? Maybe later tonight. What I have planned after this stream, which is going to be a comparatively short stream, I think, is Rachel and I have a little bit of a recording project planned. And then after that, I think that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds cool. So let me follow up with you in around 7 o'clock maybe, if that works for you, Cameron. About that. So the thing is, of course, we can use terms from philosophy to do meaningful analysis about things without making those kind of claims. Every finite substance is either a thinking substance or an extended substance. So what philosophy tends to want to do is to remove the agent from the equation. What I'm saying is that every agent's ontology is expressed by paying attention, and that we pay attention on 4 different fields. Now, you might say, well, what are those fields? Well, those fields are places we can pay attention. Well, but are they thinking objects? Are they extended substance? It doesn't matter. We're not trying to do that kind of stupid shit where we're trying to convert symbols into real things. It's a waste of time. The verb to be is a lie. So the point is, what I'm saying is that if we evaluate any given individual human being and what we can observe about them, plus what we can hear them self-report goes on inside their heads and stuff, and we can do the same access for data for ourselves, we can establish 4 distinct kinds of places where attention can be paid. And we can't think of any more than 4. In other words, in your head, you can pay attention to words in your head and not say them out loud. You can feel pain in your stomach. That's not words in your head. You can encounter something that's physical outside of you. It's an object that you can touch. And you can hear other people's words or read other people's words. Okay? So those represent 4 different kinds of attention paying, and they would appear to, at least, exist on 4 different fields. 1, inside your head. 2, inside your body. 3, outside in the world. And 4, the metaphysical external field, which is, for example, where we are right now. We're not physically together, but we're together nevertheless communicatively. Do the NT extroverts tend to be the most introverted extroverts? Okay, first of all, that's a meaningless question in cognitive functions. In cognitive functions, someone's called an extrovert simply because they have an extroverted function first. There are 4 extroverted functions: extroverted thinking, extroverted feeling, extroverted intuition, and extroverted sensing. Of the 4, extroverted thinking is the least extroverted seeming in the colloquial sense of the word extroverted. But the colloquial sense of the word extroverted is not particularly a useful sense of the word extroverted, because what they really say there is socially active or socially big personality or something like that. Cedric Beachy tested ENFP last time he took a test. I mean, that's much more consistent with what you said at 4:44 p.m. than ENTP is consistent with that. Yeah, I can't really imagine an ENTP ever saying what you said at 4:44 p.m. Although I'm sure some ENTP sometime has said it. Cedric Beachy said, I don't like it when you smoke because it's bad for you, but I don't think you're going to stop. I don't like people being fat either. I just can't conceive of an ENTP ever saying that, really.
No.
But, I mean, it's possible, but it's, especially the first part. I don't like it when you smoke because it's bad for you suggests that you're worried about me in some sense. Like, that the reason you don't like it is because you identify with the harm that it's doing me or something. Okay, so, but why do you think you're an ENTP? Cedric Beachy. So Cedric Beachy says, well, I typed as an ENFP last time I took the test, and he says that stuff about smoking, and he says, but I still think I'm an ENTP though. So what makes you think you're an ENTP? Your reasoning for why you think you're an ENTP will tell us a lot about whether you actually are or not. I'm curious as to the question now. I didn't know I wasn't even aware you had self-identified as anything in particular.
Me neither.
So the whole world revolves around you, Tiny Man 66?
Oh, hey.
You must be a sun then.
Ooh, sun.
Yes. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the heater remote.
Ooh, the heater remote. I haven't seen it.
What I think we're going to need to do is maybe like get on 405 north, drive to the heater remote, locate it, use it to turn up the heat.
I was talking when I called my sister, what?
A bitch?
A couple days ago.
Oh, you mean on the phone. I'm sorry. On the phone.
Yeah.
Not when you called your sister a bitch.
I don't remember.
Here it is, dum-dum. Did I get a new lighter yet?
I started talking about the traffic and the ways that we went to Marina Del Rey. And her, like, you could tell, like, she was not listening, like, at all. Like, she was like, I don't care about this shit.
Okay, so Cedric Beachy says, I think I'm an ENTP because that's what I usually type as. I am a 784. Well, Cedric Beachy, how do you normally type yourself? You mean taking online test normally shows you ENTP?
I feel like this is my sneaky. I feel like I'm like.
Go lie down. Because that's, trust me, go lie down for 30 minutes and then you'll probably be like, bing.
Can I do? I just want to finish.
Of course, take your time, do whatever you want.
But that's good advice. Thank you.
Cats farts too, silently, unpleasantly sudden realization. Besides which, I used to appear almost stereotypical of an ENTP in the past. Okay, so everything you just said as far as reasons, or the two things you just gave as far as reasons, are not the sort of reasons, generally speaking, an ENTP would give for believing themselves to be an ENTP. But, I mean, you can determine whether you're an ENTP or an ENFP very easily by yourself. If you are, in fact, one of those two, you can find out very easily yourself by simply trying some TI problems. And I'll get you a document that's got it's basically like worksheets and or a test that I made for a critical thinking class that I was teaching at one point. All right. ERP. Okay, here's a link. Some of these you'll need to put something down on a piece of paper. Like, I can't do number one. Obviously, you have to write some things down on a piece of paper for number one. At least you have to write the answer down on a piece of paper to keep track of them. So whether or not you can solve number one in your head, to me, is not a particularly meaningful determination of NTP, but you should be able to figure out how to solve it. Okay, well, Cedric Beachy, fortunately, we have a much more clear-cut way of checking to see if you're a thinker or a feeler in this instance. If you truly are an ENFP or an ENTP, then we can distinguish that very easily. And all you got to do is try this DRP worksheet and see how it goes. You know, if I say to you, Cedric Beachy, who is my mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter in relation to me, and I'll repeat it, who is my mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter in relation to me? Who is my mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter in relation to me? Assuming all people are married only once and there are no bastard children, what is the answer? So if you can get that pretty easily, you got that already, and you already typed in the answer and sent it to me, right? Who is my mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter in relation to me? My mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter in relation to me. It's a kind of a tricky one, but I've said it a lot of times. You should have the answer by now if you're a TI. If you're TI 1 or 2, and you're trying and you're paying attention, you should have the answer. I will pull a card for you, Miss Thang, in a second, okay? I just did, Cedric Beachy. Who is my mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter in relation to me? ISFJ Oliver Linehan has now concluded that he has the answer.
I'm trying. I pay attention.
Other self, you fail that genealogy test and you're pretty sure you have TI2 FI polar? Huh. Well, the thing is, if you're a non-native speaker of English, the genealogy test may be somewhat invalidated by that. I'm not sure. I don't have entire confidence about genealogy test when it comes to people who aren't native speakers of English, because they typically don't learn all the family relation names. Which type tears up the paper and throws it to the floor? It doesn't matter if you've been to school or not, right? The nice thing about this question is it's a good TI question because it doesn't require any special knowledge. As long as you're a native speaker of English, who is my mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter in relation to me, is a question that has one clear answer, requires no specialized knowledge, but what it does require is TI and some SI. Although the more I repeat it, the less SI it requires. That is incorrect, Cedric Beachy. Who thinks anybody here think they got it? My mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter in relation to me. Sister is incorrect. Oliver Linehan has it correct.
Oh, that's what I guessed too.
It's cousin because, of course, your mother is not her father's daughter-in-law. Right? So it's your aunt. It's your aunt's only daughter, which is your... That's very complicated, though. Well, I didn't just answer it. I came up with it, too. That's what ENTPs do.
It's true.
I mean, why don't you come up with one, then, of equivalent complication, and I'll tell you the answer. You type it here, and I'll tell you the answer. No problem. No, because I said your mother's husband. And I also indicated everyone's married only once and there's no bastard children. So your mother's husband is your mother's father. My grandfather never had a son who could marry and give him a daughter-in-law. Does that count? Well, but according to the question, the information I gave, there is a daughter-in-law, and she has a daughter herself, and I'm asking the relationship between that person and me. There's another kind of TI question you can use to test yourself, which is the all, some, only, no, whatever. So some Egyptians build pyramids, and only people who build pyramids have wigs. So some Egyptians build pyramids. Only people who build pyramids have wigs. Can we conclude that some Egyptians have wigs? I will repeat it. Some Egyptians build pyramids. Only pyramid builders have wigs. Can we conclude that some Egyptians have wigs? Legends Fall says yes. Oliver Linehan says no. Who is the winner? Oliver Linehan is the winner. Because just because only pyramid builders have wigs doesn't mean that some Egyptians that are among the pyramid builders are the same as the pyramid builders who have wigs, because not all pyramid builders have wigs. Cousin, you're far behind. We are on to the next question and beyond, Cedric Beachy. Yes, cousin. If you're doing it on paper, if you're doing these genealogy questions on paper, you're not a TI user. Unless you could be fourth slot potentially. Fourth slot will do TI questions like the genealogy questions on paper. It's more or less not helpful to do the all sum only questions on paper, what you call the quantifier questions. But maybe it could be, I don't know. So if no hatless people are allowed in here, and some people allowed in here have handkerchiefs, can we conclude that no people with hats have handkerchiefs? Gerontius, that's an incredibly TE interpretation of it. No, TI is what has to do with what's argumentationally defensible. In other words, whether things logically validate universally. TE has to do with whether they logically validate against your goals, stated outcomes, organizational goals, problem solving, etc. So it's like if you have a specific problem that you need solved, if you have a specific goal you want to attain, you're going to use extroverted thinking because you don't need your behavior's choice plan or whatever to justify universally. You just need it to accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish. On the other hand, if you are wanting to be TI logical, then it has to be universally logical. So TI is the objective logic, the logic of what is true for everyone. And TE is the particularist logic, what is true, quote unquote, for me, or my project or my organization. Well, that's all well and good, but the bottom line is where are we going to make the most money is a TE question. The logic of things doesn't really matter. The outcomes matter. The justifications don't matter. The outcomes matter. Which is why society has in place already a clear understanding of how we ought to do things. It's just that nobody understands it or agrees with it. The way we ought to do, yes, Cedric Beachy, TI is a logic function. It is introverted thinking is conditional reasoning, logic. This ability for us to talk to each other right now, Cedric Beachy, we can lay at the feet of almighty TI. The ability to render complicated and fluid realities into ones and zeros. So, if your candle doesn't burn right, is that TI or TE? That is what's called a bad candle. If you solve the problem by trying to fix the candle, you have bad TE. If you solve the candle by throwing it away and getting another candle from the box, you have good TE. The former is a senseless way of approaching things because candles are cheap and obviously the wick was put in it wrong or something. Just toss it, you got a dud. If you instead try to fix it yourself, like I might with a knife or something, then that's too much extroverted intuition in the mix. The thing is, of course, there's a lot of misconception about introverted thinking being a subjective judging function. And the reason is because Jung got it wrong. Jung didn't understand that subjective has nothing to do with internal or external. So naturally, for data, it does. So like, if I can reference a piece of data and say it's objective data, and we can determine whether or not I'm telling the truth because objective data has a clear definition. It's data that everybody can access independently. Okay? Surely nobody disagrees with that. Well, the thing is, TI is the logic of that which can be accessed by everyone independently, namely language, communication. Whereas TE is the logic of that which can only be communicated within its frame. You can only communicate TE logic within the frame of you can only evaluate the logic of it within its frame. So how effective is this at accomplishing the desired goal? You have to establish what the goal is to determine a status of something. I don't need to have any goal to say, well, that's wrong. My goal does not need to be to negate you. My goal does not need to be to even do anything. I may have no goal except just to point out that it's wrong, because being correct is a goal in and of itself. I mean, it's an absolute value for TI users, even if it's a tool function like me. The correctness or the logical consistency of a system is a precondition to meaningfully taking action. So in the reality of things, the way the world should work is TI goes first. Once it approves something as legitimate, then TE figures out how to do it. Unfortunately, the way the world actually works is people justify doing things with TE justifications, namely, well, I predict it's going to have these impacts. Well, if we're talking about public policy, for example, people are making predictions about the kinds of dynamic systems that defy their capacity to heuristically predict things. And they only count those impacts that they want to count. And there are countless unintended impacts and consequences that matter a lot to some people, but don't matter to others. And that's why utilitarianism needs to be checked by being second in line logically for justifications. It's important that we justify things as legitimate first with TI, and then let TE have its way and figure out how to solve the thing, how to deal with the thing. TI is there to stop TE from trampling over all the beautiful things in life to get its way. And that's exactly what TE does. Oh, well, we need to get from here to there. Well, let's just pave over this endangered wetland. That's TE. Because it's not concerned about things outside of its frame of reference. TI goes, can we figure out a way to do this where we consider the universal factors as well as our particular factors? So in other words, the problem here is this isn't just because you plan to just demolish these people's houses when they're not home, build a road over them, and then pretend as though the houses never existed when they get back. That's your current plan. I've got a problem with it. Well, what's your problem? It's the most effective way to do it. We don't have to pay them for anything. How are they going to be able to prove that there used to be houses there? You think they'd stand around and take pictures of their houses? Probably not. We just keep denying. We'll start a disinformation campaign, and no problem. We'll have our road and our cake and eat it too. TE Superfund. Here we go. The problem is it's unjust, and TI is the thing that take that into account by saying, remember, you two are subject to reciprocal burdens, TE. How about then I decide to just knock down your corporate building and put up my playset on top of it and say, well, as long as I just pretend it was never there in the first place, it'll be fine. And so that's why TI needs to come first in the calculation process. TE comes after if and only if TI approves it. That's how it should be. TI is for justifying things as legitimate. TE is for justifying things as effective. All right, here's your card, Miss Thang. I'm going to give you a 3-card pull. This is for your hope. You hope that 2021 is the death of 2020. Hope to transition into a new Miss Thang. Perhaps you hope to evolve into either Mrs. Thang or Miss Thing. All right. Now, this is for your fear. We just did your hope. Now's your fear. What are you scared of? You're scared of a suave king of cups coming sweeping you off your emotional feet. You just got out of that because I cannot go through this again. I cannot do it. Jerry he seemed like the one. He just turned out to be a complete asshole. And I'm just not going to fall for that bullshit anymore. They say they love me, but then they're all emotions, so you can't believe anything they say. Yeah, avoid the feelers. Okay, that's what I would say for your fear. If you're worried about that, avoid the feelers. Okay, here we go. As a feeler yourself, perhaps you're susceptible to feelers bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is for your realities. We did hope, fear, now your reality. Your reality is you got places to go, you got shit to do.
You're moving on.
I'm not even shitting on you FI users this time, Fenty Deluxe. I'm shitting on the TE users, all right? Big difference.
Yeah, really, that was huge.
Okay, I take turns. I don't just shit on FI. I also shit on TE.
Yeah,
Every once in a while, I'll even shit on SE, you know?
you do.
Any of my non-conscious functions, I'm willing to shit on. Okay, so that's your reality. How's that for you, Lady Pants, Miss Thang? That's your 2021 card reading. You're welcome to come back for update anytime, you know.
Yeah.
That's your current reading, okay? That could change. You never know. I'm not predicting the future. I'm just telling you that's what the tarot says right now. Sometimes the tarot's terribly wrong. Whenever I ask the tarot about who's going to win a game, well, not whenever. It was right about the Rams that time.
It was.
No, about USC. It was right about the USC Oregon game.
Yeah.
The tarot was totally right about the USC Oregon game. But anyway.
It's not.
But it's been wrong more than that about games when I use it to get the tarot's opinion about the upcoming football game or something. The tarot is often very wrong.
Yeah. I don't think
Didn't it pick
how sports work.
The tarot picked Florida Marlins to win the World Series, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
That shows you how wrong the tarot can be.
Yeah.
Is your polar function what determines your type the easiest way? Yes, guarantee is. If you can identify it, and not all polars are easy to identify. It is still mostly art. I mean, not mostly, but it's still as much art as science. So mother's husband's only daughter-in-law equals mother's mother equals grandma. Grandma's husband equals grandpa. Only daughter-in-law equals the wife of grandpa's son. Yes, correct, Cedric Beachy. If you're still on that and still parsing that out, then that is not TI tool function. Definitely not. Okay? Because like if I asked an INTP that question and they were paying attention the first time I said it, they'd tell me the answer the first time I said it. I'd say, who is my mother's husband's only daughter-in-law's only daughter? And they'd say, sister. I said, now cousin. That's what they do.
Can you do a poll on how did I sleep until 4 o'clock this afternoon?
Well, what I'm going to do is a poll on Rachel before sleeping, Rachel during sleeping, and Rachel after sleeping.
Okay.
ENTP would say sister, and then they'd be like wrong. And then they go, what? No, because, and they go, oh, fuck you. Fuck you for tricking me. That's what ENTP would do.
Can I sleep in here? I'm going to nap in here.
Right now?
Like soon, yeah.
Do I have to go
No.
from here into
No,
another?
I'm just letting you know.
I gotta do whatever you want to do. If you don't feel like recording vocals, we won't record them. If you do, that's
It might be
fine.
a little bit too much SE for like
Whatever you want,
also
baby.
biking, because like I
Also
know
biking?
how I get while we go scooting.
Oh, we're going scooting.
Yeah.
Later.
So,
I forgot about
I
that.
don't want to be mad for scooting.
Okay, we can cancel scooting too if you want. If you're not feeling it. It's pretty chilly.
Let's do the cards.
All right.
I want to consider what the cards say.
Rachel before sleeping.
Yeah, I was meandering around the yard, the deck.
Walking with a stick, looking at stuff.
Yeah, fed Pete.
We live in Los Angeles, greater Los Angeles metropolitan area, Miss Thing. Actually, we live in Arcadia.
East LA.
It's not, the thing is, if you say East LA in LA, people think you live in Mexico town.
Oh.
But we live on the eastern half of LA County.
Yeah.
In Arcadia. I try to tell people where it is. I say it's where the equestrian events were held in the 1984 Olympics. Nobody knows. It doesn't help them. This is while you were sleeping.
Huh.
So you went from having a clear walking around path to I'm setting off to new places that I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And then after you sleep, which ones do you currently have, Falmo Hot?
Oh, sounds like
The lovers.
you and me.
I guess you woke up horny.
Wow. I really do feel like I want to be close to you right now, so I don't want to go back in.
Okay, sure. You want access to all of my documents. I mean, a lot of them aren't very interesting, Palmahat. You know, I don't even know how I would even begin to do that. I don't really have any private documents.
Yeah, why not?
But I'll give. I mean, here, let me get you.
Gander.
I've got the three things that I normally share. If you, I don't know if you've gotten them or not, but the three things I normally share are the quick reference guide, exciting tables, and the beginning of this thing that I would like to continue working on at some point, probably will, so relatively soon. I'm starting to feel like, okay, I'm kind of being inspired by the anime towards Resolve, which was actually the reason for the title of this.
What is Resolve's actual definition?
Okay, so if you think about the word itself, it starts off by being resolve. So you solve something again, right? That's sort of the etymological roots of it. But in terms of debate, we use the term to describe the act of the affirmation, namely resolved. Then they state the resolution, which is to say the aff is essentially saying, I resolve that, I have resolved that the following thing ought to be done. Now, that's a different meaning than resolve at that point. It means something like stick-to-itiveness or certainty or clarity of path. Or it contains all those different components. So now the issue of resolution, a solution is obviously the noun form of solve. So to solve implies there's a problem of some sort. To attain a solution implies the problem has been rendered into a non-problem by the solution. And then as far as the idea of resolve, I think it suggests a stick-to-itiveness because it implies that you didn't solve the problem in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So you're returning to it. Resolve would, as a personality characteristic of sorts, would tend to suggest a willingness to continue addressing problems. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Seamus the drunk, you have SE in the 8th. I haven't done nothing in 13 years. If you're really a drunk, you have done something in 13 years. You've devoted all of your creative and life energies into alcohol. Like I did. I did that for quite a while too.
I'm sorry that you were the one who would fall asleep at the party first.
When I was drunk?
Yeah.
That was the problem I had.
You mean things to that person.
Oh no, that never happened to me.
Okay, that's good.
I don't think that it's like, I don't know, I didn't, that kind of shit, like that kind of frat boy stuff,
Yeah.
I wasn't around it very much. Those weren't my people.
I'm so glad. Oh my god. I can't take those people. No offense. Wow, I really thought out how I feel about frat boy stuff. No offense. Like, brotherhood and stuff is really good, especially when you, like, I don't know, whatever. But, I'm glad. That's cool.
I always found myself in opposition to those people. I want to qualify George Washington Carver's quote here, which I think is a good one, but needs a little bit of a change here. It says, resolve to be tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, and tolerant of the weak. But it should and then say tolerant of the weak and the wrong. It should say resolved to be tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, tolerant of the weak, and intolerant of the wrong. That's what it should say. And forceful with, and robust in one's attacking of wrongness. Because there's no capacity in which you can say wrongness should be coddled. Wrongness should not be coddled. No. Because wrongness is just like, I'm doing a shitty job on the map. Okay, no, that's not an okay other way to be. Understand where your mapping capacities are adequate and where they're not, and attend where they are. So it's like if I've got an ENFP who's devoting a lot of their attention to politics, there's two problems. Number one, they have a life that could be directed towards something where they have skills, ability, justification, qualifications, where they can be magic. Or they can waste their life in something where it's like trying to get a blind person to be a sharpshooter. They're just, no matter how much you work up being a sharpshooter, if you have no eyesight at all, you are not going to get beyond, the fourth percentile of ability. So it's like, but not only is it them wasting their own lives when they're talking about politics and stuff, it's them doing active harm to everybody else who's not as clear cut about what ought to be as those who have detached entirely from the issue. I'm not even devaluing it. The thing is, what I'm saying is it has its place. Subjective deliberation is just as important as objective deliberation. The thing is, objective deliberation, it's just like there's a 2-lane highway. It's just as important to go east as it is to be able to go west on the highway, right? The east lane is just as important as the west lane. For all of us Western traveling people, TI people, we stay in our lane. We don't go try to spend half of the time driving in the eastbound lane. But those who are FI users frequently seem to be oblivious to the line that separates the two lanes, the appropriate areas. Now, granted, I will be known to swerve into the other lane as well, as per anytime somebody tries to hurt my feelings, I will critique them on sort of accuracy, whether a passive reciprocal burdens test and stuff. Whereas really I need to engage the FI thing with F stuff, right? But my complaint is not that FI is not an equally powerful and important deliberation function, but rather that those who use it are terrible drivers and spend half the time in my lane. Like how much energy did Cloud spend determinedly driving his stupid eastbound car in my westbound lane? Shit tons. Can you imagine me going to his channel and spending my time telling him that his subjective evaluation of his relationships in his life, which would be let's say somebody made a channel where they talk about their life all the time and their loves, and I really have a crush on Bobby, but now Janice is kissing him. Let's say it's like one of those kind of things, right? And it's just sort of a Dear Diary thing. Can you imagine me going there and saying, hey, you need to be more logical about your feelings? No.
That's kind of how my old one was a little bit.
I mean, I used to be like that when I was younger. I used to just shit on FI wherever I saw it, But nowadays I certainly don't. But that's the thing is TI is capable of learning models that liberate the TI user from one's own cognitive lane biases. And I'm not sure that like ESFPs are ever capable of learning that. It doesn't seem to matter whether they're old or young. They don't seem to recognize that it's a 2-lane highway. they think they're on a one direction highway and that everybody who keeps appearing in their lane is doing something wrong. Well, no, they're just swerving back and forth willy-nilly. You know, I can't believe so many people drive the wrong direction on this one direction 2-lane road. It's because they're not driving the same direction, fucktards. Valerie Alwood got banned again? Oh no, I see. That's such a confusing sentence. I was like, when did Valerie Alwood ever get banned in the first place?
Yeah.
But no, it was at Valerie and Alwood got banned again is the answer to the question, well, where is Cloud?
Oh my gosh, got banned again.
I mean, it's a perfect example of him trying to drive his FI car in here last night. Or when, I think it was last night, where he says, but Eric, 6 months ago, you said you liked me. Well, I guess I liked you 6 months ago when I said that. You know? And then, Eric, if you tell me you want me to leave forever, I'll go. It doesn't work like that. If you annoy me, I'll ban you again. Then Horse Mumbler clarified, Eric's feelings are what he feels right now. He has no idea how he's going to feel in the future. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that whether do you want me to leave forever? What? What kind of a weird question is that? I don't even know what that means.
So adorable. I love you so much. I'm so gaff right now.
Sent to emotional labor camp for being an FI user. All right, all you FI users, you need to wear a yellow rhombus in the middle of your shirt so we can identify you and spit on you. No, I love FI people just as much as I love FE people. I'm just talking about being a safe driver, right? That's all I'm talking about. What comprises being a safe driver? And it means use your deliberation function on the appropriate kind of matter. If you're having an emo time, like right now Rachel says she's feeling emo.
I am.
It's a good opportunity for her to use her FI. What do I feel? Why do I feel that way? What should I conclude from this? It can take a long time to process even the smallest thing. Like, do I want that or this?
Oh my God. So true.
Yeah, it's an FI user. Valerie Alwood is ESFP. I got confused. I got to get something to eat. I'm dying of starvation all of a sudden. If we don't have any burritos, let's just eat cheese and yogurt.
Okay.
Okay, I got us easy to eat things.
Cool. Oh yeah, let's go.
A peach or strawberry?
Peach, please. Thank you.
also,
Further.
it is that quarter pounder.
Cool.
I'm not afraid to eat it still. You know,
I'm not afraid to
it's like
eat
24 hours old.
Why don't you go for it? If you're hungry and you want it.
No, I'm going to start with yogurt and Uncrustable and this, and then I may eat that later.
Okay.
Probably part of why you feel sleepy is you need to eat too.
Yeah.
That'll impact one's SI substantially.
I think it's tough. I feel bad because I hope that I didn't break the washer and dryer.
Well, I mean, like, can you think of anything specific you did that would have broken it?
I do heavy loads.
I mean, if there wasn't an occasion where you said, I probably shouldn't do this, but fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. And then after that, it didn't work as well. If that occasion didn't happen, then it's just either you didn't break it or just normal usage is, whatever.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
When I break shit, it means I've like gone, okay, I'm not sure if I should do this thing or not, but I'm gonna push it anyway.
Well, one thing that I did do that to was in between dryers, I didn't do the lint thing.
That's the dryer though.
Yeah. Oh, the washer's thing? Well, your dad's like.
My dad broke it.
Yeah.
Doing the rugs.
Yeah, I think so too. Oh, thank you for helping me with that. That honestly was on my mind subconsciously because
I mean, he thinks he broke it too, and he's hoping maybe somebody else contributed to the problem.
Okay.
Or, yeah, basically.
It's not meant. That's the second time that we did rugs and it didn't do well with rugs.
We did rugs once.
First.
we got
Yeah.
Scolded for it.
Yeah.
Why can't you do a new line in YouTube? What's new line? Well, last time I got Florida's natural grapefruit juice, I got it thinking to myself, well, I'm going to take some Adderall and drink the grapefruit juice so the Adderall will work better. I think it did, but what I've also come to realize is my body doesn't react well to being thoroughly thwacked as it used to. So I feel it more in general. I feel the negative impacts of the process of withdrawing energy from the future, which is what you're doing with Adderall. It's like you withdraw energy for the future, from the future, and then you pay it back in the future with sleep.
Maybe I have COVID.
I mean,
Maybe.
I felt like I was coming down with something last time too. So he might be sick.
Because I never, you know me. Usually when I'm up. It's very hard for me to go back to sleep. I
Go
fell
to sleep.
asleep twice.
We'll sleep more. If you are sick, that's the best thing you can possibly do, is just sleep.
Right. I'm going to listen to...
See, I mean, I'm not saying I want you to go. I'm also saying, hey, look who's here.
Woo!
It's Octavio Silva.
Yay! Hey, Octavio Silva. It's good to see you.
Adderall doesn't make you sleepy. It really depends, actually, whether it makes me sleepy or not. Eric, you're my son. You'd think I was making a pun because your beautiful cut reflects all the rays right into the rut of my eyes and has been doing it for days.
That's actually really nice.
He's saying the cut of my jib? Sky Gear, you know I've asked you to stop talking about my jib. I'm really sensitive about my jib. Don't talk about my jib. You can talk about my mom all you want, but you are not talking about my jib. New line equals enter equals return. Oh. You can't do shift enter here. Yeah, well, YouTube's pretty stingy on its formatting and stuff. They don't really let you put any bold or italics in anything, and
No, like designs. It just recently started letting you have emojis.
Yeah. So Oliver Linehan, you are correct that INTJs and ENFPs are both analyst types, which is to say they go metaphysical, physical, physical, physical. I find that meta-analysts typically get along better with executives, and analysts typically get along better with executors. So in other words, the meta-analysts being ENTP, INTP, ENFJ, INFJ, and the executives being ESTP, ISFJ, INFP, and ENTJ. So those, in other words, if you put a group of meta-analysts and a group of executives together, you're going to find a group of people who think approaching stuff in life works the same way, basically. In other words, the executives think we're supposed to tell the analysts what to do. The analysts think they're supposed to tell the executives what to do. So we're all on the same page. The analysts think they're supposed to tell the meta-analysts what they're supposed to do.
Oh man.
And thinks that the executors ought to be the executives or something. I don't know. Like the analysts, INTJs and ENFPs and okay, so that's NINE, ISTP and who's the other one? FP first, but then ESFJ. Those types are going to butt heads with meta-analysts in general. INTJs are going to butt heads with ENTPs because Winston's mom accepted. Not all of them will, but a lot of INTJs are going to butt head with ENTPs because of ENTPs' sort of stubborn refusal to allow anything to be framed through utility. It's just going to drive INTJs crazy. Because talk about everybody doing everything wrong. I mean, if you want to look at one person doing everything wrong, look at me from an INTJ's perspective. So this is one person, but he manages to do everything wrong. Because, of course, I'm half-assing everything to some extent or another, ENFPs are likely to think I'm doing the right kind of thing entirely wrong, as I'm likely to think that about them.
So I would think that about ENFJs?
No, you'd think that about so it's like the equivalent for you is and the analysts would be, well, I mean, the analysts are ESFJ, ISTP, INTJ, ENFP.
So mine would be INTJ.
That would be the type that you think has got the basics thing down, but is doing every instance of that basic thing back asswards. Whereas the ENFP, you're going to think is just doing everything wrong, basically. Because, you know.
I just always keep on in mind that they're my contrary type. They're contrarian.
ISTP, you're going to think at first they got it right, and then you're going to be like, but where's the, where's the, you're going to feel like that about ISTPs. And then what's the other one in that group? ESFJ. Well, ESFJs, you're going to roll your eyes at.
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
In general, meta-analysts and analysts types are going to roll their eyes at each other. The analyst types are going to say, all your words don't apply to anything. And the meta-analysts types are going to say, you need to apply my words, not your own. You need to apply what I say, not what you're thinking, because you're not thinking big frame enough. It's not just the ends that need to be big frame, it's the means as well. That's what the meta-analyst says. You know, we need to validate on both frames. The analysts say the ends need to validate universally, but the means don't. The analyst says the ends don't need to validate universally because they can't, but the means must because they should. And that's the most correct way of looking at things in the world, is the executive way of looking at things. That, look, we're always going to have a particularist goal or frame of reference, but the way we attain that should be universally validated. Means over ends. Now, the meta-analysts go one further than that. We go, well, not only should the means validate, but we don't care about the ends. We just insist that the means validate, that we be the validator prior to anybody having access to ends-based arguments.
That's true.
So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that stuff. Pretty good stuff, I think.
Really good stuff. I was thinking the same thing. This is really good information here. Who asked that question?
I don't know. I don't remember what the question was. If I'm an ENFP because I can't do TI, the conversion of abstract concepts into ones and zeros, does that just make me an inferior ENTP? Absolutely not. It makes you an ENFP. If you are an ENFP because you can't do the TI, that's exactly why. It means that there's an equivalent thing that I'm blind at that you're very good at. And that's your particularist judging function, knowing whether the thing is consistent with what you want, how you're going to feel about it now, and how you're going to feel about it a little bit later. How to resolve things like, you know, everything that relates to that which is precious to you and what matters and what's significant. Those are kind of deliberations that an ENFP is much, much better at than an ENTP. That's why ENFP has extroverted thinking as a third slot absolute value. When they do figure out how to attain a goal, that's where they feel like accomplished. That's a textbook analyst response. But Eric, you have to have a particularist means of doing things. You know? No, you don't. No, not all behavior emerges from a frame in that fashion. So, in other words, remember that in order to frame things as a utilitarian, goal-oriented thing, you have to be attending to the goal or that frame. So what am I doing then? So then now you use your hypothesis. You use your hypothesis meaningfully now to analyze me. How my behavior is demonstrative of the truth you claim. Okay, so if you are correct that I do, and that I'm proving your claim that humans are inherently driven by the ends, by doing what I'm doing here, then analyze successfully for me how it is that this behavior exemplifies the claim you are stating is true. I hate being alone, Octavia Silva, unless I'm in a state of flow. If I'm in a flow state and I'm working on something, then I don't necessarily want anybody around. But I'm not necessarily bothered by somebody being around. Okay, so that's the thing, is I'm not really asking you to TI, I'm asking you to SI. I'm asking you to say, look, Eric, here's an example of it. You're talking right now. This represents, in some way or form, you pursuing an outcome, an end that is important to you. The way you'd argue it is to say, whether you consciously are linking this back to the goal of entertaining yourself, that's fundamentally what you're doing. And so that must be your goal. Except a goal is some sort of explicitly stated or understood outcome that you're seeking. Enjoying, so I like to swim in a pool, let's say. I like the feeling of being in the water. So is my goal there to experience that feeling? Well, that's my motivation, perhaps, for why I get into the pool, but that doesn't mean it's a goal. So if somebody pokes me with a sharp stick every time I go any direction but that way, then I am motivated to go that way. But going that way is not my goal. My goal, I don't have a goal, right? I am being responsive to stimulation that's unpleasant. And I'm avoiding that unpleasant stimulation. But it's not a goal. I mean, the thing is, Fenty Deluxe, we have multiple frames of reference. And what you're saying is, I can't conceptualize your frame of reference, Eric, so it doesn't exist. But it does exist, and it certainly is possible to go through life without framing your choices through goal orientation. Obviously, there's going to be some explicit things. There's going to be some implicit values. In other words, some things that an evaluation of your behavior over time will show that you consistently value more than other things. That doesn't mean that your goal is to uphold those values. Well, it's still, I mean, even if it passes, it has to survive the courts,
LOL.
There's one thing to do all this shit extra legally. It's quite another to get legal justification for it. And that's a much bigger challenge, because ultimately somebody gets their day in court and gets to argue against this shit. And the beautiful thing about a courtroom, and the thing that continues to make it basically an accountability forum, is that everybody has to sit there and listen to what people say, and it gets recorded by the court transcriber. So there's no avoiding my words. It's like, let's say there were a trial about cognitive functions, where all the people who want to debate me, quote unquote, are instead put on trial for wrongness. Well, they couldn't avoid my points. They'd be on this witness stand. They have to answer the question. They'd be instructed to answer the question by the judge, and their nonsense would be dismantled in no uncertain terms. That's what makes it an accountability arena, is that words matter in court, and it's what saves civil society, is that accountability arena. So, of course, the reality is, though, the outside world is not that kind of an accountability arena. Words don't have to make sense. Lots of people are totally irrational. and justify things with reasons that they don't understand their own reasoning. Like if you talk to that guy, Matt Acut, about his reasoning behind his grand theory of everything, his real reasoning on the illocutionary plane is he wanted to have that accomplishment, to have figured out something. But he tried to figure out something that required TI logic, not TE logic. And he just sort of did philosophy theater. And, I don't think you're ENFP, Cedric Beachy. I'm saying if you are ENFP or ENTP, you are not ENTP. That makes you ENFP. Conditionally. In other words, it is logically necessarily the case that if you are an ENFP or an ENTP, that you are an ENFP because we've eliminated the possibility of ENTP. However, it might be the case that you are neither ENTP nor ENFP, in which case you would be something else.
Exactly. He's just saying that you're not ENTP.
No, Fenty Deluxe. I said if it is in fact the case. If and only if, okay?
See, that's conditional logic, though.
If you don't listen to the if, you're right. That's what I said, Fenty Deluxe. But the if is massively important. I mean, that's an ENFP move. I'll say, if you go to the store, I'll become angry. So you're angry, huh? No. You haven't gone to the store. I'm writing an ENTP character, and one of his biggest issues is he can't tolerate being by himself, running from depression, etc. That normal, unhealthy ENTP behavior. Yeah, I mean, you might call this unhealthy ENTP behavior. When I am stimming, stimming is a good word. It's taken from special education. I used to be a teacher in special education, and autistic people will stim a lot of times. They go like this. All regular people stim as well.
Yeah, like I play with my hair. Is that considered?
Well, but what I'm talking about is sort of a larger ontological kind of stemming. For me, live streaming is stemming. It's useful only because it's stimulatory to myself. I can create words that express utility to it beyond that. I can point to concrete outcomes, such as the fact that I do occasionally get super chats and I make some money from the live stream, and that sometimes my numbers are decent or whatever. But fundamentally, this is me stemming. It's like I felt like talking out some ideas online, and I started live streaming. Just sort of, it wasn't completely mindless beginning, as it sometimes is, where all of a sudden I'm streaming and don't even hardly remember turning it on. This time I talked to Rachel about it because we had talked about recording vocals, but she was expressing that she's still feeling kind of sleepy now. And so, so this was a more decided live stream than most. And I went into it thinking it was going to be a fairly on the shorter side. I don't want another 3-hour stream. I feel like I do after I've been done playing video games when I stream for that long. Like, what have I been doing for the last, whatever hours? Interestingly, I don't feel that way when I consume media, really. So maybe it's because I'm an action type. For me, I am indulging myself too much when I'm making too much stuff. I never seem to feel guilty or overly indulgent by binging on a bunch of episodes of a show. As long as it's good and moving me, then that's an absolute value for me. So, Eric, is there a correlation between types and intelligence? Looking at you, ESFJ, ESFP. Well, in the colloquial sense, yes, ENTPs are smarter than either of those two types. But that's just the colloquial sense. And just like the colloquial sense of the word extroverted, it's not very meaningful. A better question is to say this. If you talk about ESFJs, ESFPs, ENFPs, and ENTPs, and you give 50 people a chance to talk to each of them for 10 minutes, which is going to be voted the smartest by the 50 people? The answer is going to be ENTP. But does that mean they're actually the smartest of those 4 types? It totally depends on the context. If the context is displaying intelligence, yes. What's the meaning behind the title of the stream? Well, it emerged from me noting in anime that in Japan, there's this strong NISE bias, which is to say, the solution in most Japanese anime is to have clearer and more dedicated resolve towards your single path. And that if you want to even be trained by this guy or that guy, you have to have sufficient resolve to be trained by them. In other words, you need an adequate commitment. But it's really quite, it creates a society which is very antithetical to extroverted intuition people and SE polar people. I think this works to the benefit of INTPs who are motivated by this constant, I'm counting on you, demonstrate how serious you are and your resolve about this. That works well in the INTP's favor because it actually does end up motivating them. They're not selfish about their 4th slot function in quite the same way that they are about their 3rd slot. So for me, it doesn't really work with me because 3rd slot selfish, FE. In the light of all the nonsense surrounding the proliferation of autism spectrum disorders, how do you think autism should be validly and meaningfully defined? It should be defined as a disability, including mental retardation, which additionally manifests as blindness of social cues. The key thing is it shouldn't qualify as autism unless it includes mental retardation. I mean, there's this weird cult of autism fetish that's grown up over the fact that it is the case that some autistic people are savants. That is to say, they can do crazy tricks. My dad knew one that you could tell him, what day is February 26, 2064? And he'd be able to tell you, it's Tuesday. Wow. And you look it up, he was right, you know? Of course, as a magic ability, that's a magic ability anybody has now simply by Googling it. So what's the value of that? Nothing. I had a kid in one of my classes who was autistic who knew all of the bus schedules, like all the bus lines, all the bus schedules. Well, you've got to take Route 14 on bus 245 to Chinatown. You can get off at the and you did.
Wow.
He tell you about any fucking bus line in Los Angeles.
You know, it makes sense why when you're saying that, why ESTJ and ENFP are activity partners, because ENFP will totally love that, I could see my dad talking to your dad about that stuff forever.
Cedric Beachy asks, if I'm not an ENTP, what am I? And I've got the exact answer you need to hear. Cedric Beachy, you are someone who should pay me $100 to type you.
That is the right answer. I did.
Rachel did. She's not just my girlfriend, she's also a client. As long as you can make your world in the way in the world today takes everything you've got, taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. How might an ENTP with the anxious, engaging attachment style act differently from you? I mean, they'd obviously be a lot more self-protective. So one of the one of my qualities that makes me stand out as a individual human being that may or may not be common to ENTPs. I see Isaiah Rude has it as well. Is a kind of naivety or an assumption that they don't need to protect themselves. That for me, it's come from being naturally that way to learning to defend, to be defensive or protected, to learning to sort of build up some walls around myself, and then back to being wallless again. Alex Rodriguez says, if I pay you $30, will you give me one letter? No, it doesn't work that way. Cedric BG, you can be the star of a typing video by paying me $100 to type you and then saying, yes, I'd like you to publish it.
Yeah.
You don't have to publish your typing. I just booked one today, in fact, where they said they did not want it published.
Victoria Silva says, I've missed your incomplete answers, Eric. Heart.
Nothing's ever completely answered, Octavia Silva. Nothing. I could type them and then not tell them the answer and then make them pay for the answer.
Wow.
That's how a lot of websites do stuff.
They do. Yeah. I know. Like, that's how, like, a lot of those astrologers are. I'll be like, ooh, like, I'm an interested client. And then they'll be like, all squares and odds. I'm like, man.
Valerie Elwood, I got to say this. I do my very best to make people feel comfortable when I'm typing them and to not make them feel dumb. And nevertheless, I do ask a variety of questions, trying to find out which kind of questions people can answer easily and which kind they can't. And since I am looking for weak spots attentionally, then it is going to be the case that some people are going to feel like they're being exposed in this area or that area or the other area. Is it more important to measure ability to determine cognitive functions? Won't you measure motivations? Okay, so the thing about motivations, of course, only one of those things can be measured, right? So it's a matter of what kind of data we want to rely on. Subjective data is reliable somewhat from objective people, but subjective data is not reliable from subjective people. So if you ask ENFP, ESFP to self-report, their self-reporting is going to be incredibly unreliable because they're going to be using their tool function to tell you what they want to be, not what they are. You hate vagueness? Well, the thing is, there's not a lot of vagueness really in cognitive functions, but it is kind of complicated. And that what you don't have, that people want and sometimes complain that it doesn't exist, is you don't have a single protocol that requires no discretion. So when we test somebody to see if they have what type of blood they have, it requires no discretion. The test tells you it's type O, and nobody has to do anything except follow rules. Nobody has to interpret anything. There's no interpretation involved. Cognitive functions is not that yet. So I've got to interpret a bunch of different kinds of answers, each of which represents a different sort of answer, or there's a few classes of answers. So I can try to evaluate whether something is an absolute or an instrumental value for you, for example. That would be kind of a motivational calculus, but really is trying to determine which function is in the service of which other function. Octavia still says, you could probably burn down Eric's house and he'd forgive you and probably forget about it until you remind him that it happened. That's sort of true.
Yeah, I said like in my head I was thinking like that's mostly true. I feel like if someone like burned down your dad's house, you care more than your own.
For sure. The thing is, you say what I want is part of who you are. Correct. But what I'm talking about specifically is like if I ask you on a scale of 1 to 10 how creative you are, that's a difficult question for people to answer in general. Number one, they don't really have a sense of how creative other people are, except from looking at those other people's creative output. And if they're comparing themselves on output, they might say, I'm not creative at all because I haven't created anything. However, let's say they play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and they're Dungeon Master a lot of the time. They haven't really created anything, but they're being very creative all the time. On the other hand, let's say you're an ESFP. You know you want to be creative. You want to be perceived as creative. You want, as part of your identity, creativity, right? So you're going to rank that very highly. How reliable is that answer? Well, in reality, ESFP is not creative at all, but they're going to rank themselves at least 7 or 8. Now, they're active. So Cloud has created a lot of words, quote unquote. He's done a lot of extroverted intuiting, quote unquote, but he hasn't actually been creative at all. He's really just paraphrasing things he hears other places, NI shit, and throwing it out there in order to provoke. He's driven by his SE frame of reference. That's his motivational thing. His SE is an absolute value. His extroverted intuition is an instrumental value and automatic, and so is introverted intuition an instrumental value for him. So as a consequence, he's attained his goal when he kicked the anthill and saw people scurrying around. For people who value the intuitive truths of things, the actual creativity of things, or the logic of things, this is frustrating because we're trying to do stuff and he keeps kicking the anthill. Well, if he's really an ENFJ and he has 95 in openness and 95 in conscientiousness, that's also an example of an unreliable self-report because, of course, they're SI polar. They have no idea if they're conscientious or not. They don't remember. They assume they must be conscientious because a lack of conscientiousness doesn't seem to cause them any problems. A lack of conscientiousness doesn't seem to cause them any problems because they're polar. They're blind to it. They don't even know when they're not being conscientious. And when it does cause them a problem, they assume it must have been, instead of lack of conscientiousness, it was probably poor introverted thinking that got them. Or maybe they had failed to validate on an introverted feeling, but they definitely didn't fail to validate on SI. Well, so the thing is, that's the same thing as I'm saying Infinity Deluxe from the other angle. When you say it's his NI tool telling him telling him that the idea of himself is certain. Correct. That the meaning, the universal symbol of himself is much more important than his experience. So much more important than his experience that he will tell us the idea he has, a self-concept idea, without actually even looking to the experiential data, because that's the kind of experiential data he's blind to. If I have problems falling asleep because I'm thinking about my goals and getting stuff done, is that poor SI? That's backside SI, yeah. I have problems falling asleep when I Well, there's two conditions under which I have problem falling asleep. In all situations where I'm trying to go to sleep or planning to go to sleep or whatever, I go into pretend mode. So what I'm thinking about as I'm falling asleep is myself on another planet doing stuff with various characters that I have there and stuff. I have an ongoing story. Anyway, so I'm pretending when I'm going to sleep. If I get too deep in my storyline, which I often read, it's like it's slow going. It's like an anime in the sense that in order for me to keep this ongoing storyline in my head, I have to retell most of last night's version of the story before I get to any new parts. Often I don't get to any new parts. I fall asleep. If I get to some new parts and then I start going back to the old parts again to review them, then I know I'm not falling asleep tonight. Well, that's a very good conclusion. There are more humans than cows, therefore humans would be more prolific milk producers. That seems very environmentally friendly, milking human women. At the human woman milking facility, the women go and they just, after their child has been weaned, they just go there and there's some of those what are they called? Funnels. And they just put their boobs in the funnels and just they chat with each other. Maybe there'd be they get pumped and then they read Cosmo, and just to make them feel more at home, even though it's not a hairdryer, they put one of those circle things over their head.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
And then they feel more comfortable there, like we're at the beauty salon. And then we pasteurize the human milk and we sell it to grocery stores branded as cow's milk to fool people.
Wow.
And then they say, "Do you know you've been drinking human milk this whole time?" I thought it tasted awfully gamey.
What happens so does the milk develop in the woman's breasts when she has a baby?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it starts coming out like at first when the baby sucks on it, a little bit of like this pre-milk stuff comes out that's supposedly good for newborn infants. And then shortly thereafter, regular milk comes out. And it'll keep coming out as long as something keeps sucking on the breasts. So the reason cows get milked is not because they're constantly having a calf, but that once their calf is weaned, they just keep milking them. And the breasts will just keep producing milk for as long as something sucks the milk out of them. And so when you stop breastfeeding, your breasts get painful until it goes away, I guess. I don't know what happens to all the milk that doesn't get drunk. It just gets absorbed back into the body or something? I don't know.
A lot of times women will force it out anyway because it's painful. So they'll
but then they'll just keep getting more. Right? So it's like
there's a pain threshold and then you get over it.
Yeah, and then you get over it. Cows are the same way. Once cows get accustomed to being milked, they'll be very mad if you're late milking them because they're uncomfortable. Because their teats are full of milk.
Wow. That's fascinating.
But the thing about the human milking idea is it's much more environmentally friendly if you could just say, look, this is like giving blood. We're not requiring it or whatever. But we encourage women when they wean their children to not stop producing milk, but to have at least 1 year of breast milk donation before they stop producing milk, or at least donate a couple of times. Now, if gradually we could become this could be the sort of become a big thing, then eventually there'd be fewer dairy farms, and dairy farms are known to be quite environmentally harmful. In fact, cow husbandry in general is quite environmentally harmful because, as everybody knows, harm to the environment and deliciousness are directly proportional. The more delicious something is, the more harmful to the environment it is to eat it.
I was thinking about the cheese.
Well, that's fine though.
Delicious cheese.
It is delicious cheese, and it may even be vegetarian cheese. Because, there's vegetarian cheese.
Yeah.
And then there's vegan cheese. Vegetarian cheese is different than vegan
really?
cheese. Yeah. Vegetarian cheese is any cheese that's not made with calf rennet. So the way that they make cheese is they kill a calf, or this is how they used to make it. And they take the enzymes in the calf's stomach that turn the milk that the calves drink into cheese, and then so the calf's body can digest it better. So in other words, baby cows turn milk in their stomachs into cheese before they digest it. So we should take out the baby calf stomach and put our milk in there and make cheese that way. But the thing is, I don't think they really do it like that anymore. They probably have some new chemical that they use instead. I don't know.
That's bananas. I never knew. That's why they consider it like a wine and cheese. Like it's a delicacy in a little way.
Well, the reason wine, cheese, and go together is because cheese is the most mouth-filling, mushy goo thing, and wine is the most mushy goo-cutting thing. Well, you know what? We did get it last month, and I drank a bunch of it with my Adderall, and it kind of like worked too well, I guess, or something. Because I'd heard that I don't know. I felt it kind of made me feel unwell. So I haven't mentioned it, but the main reason, though, we haven't been pimping the FNGJ is because it's hard to find. Most of the stores we go to don't have it. What does the word resolve have to teach us? Well, the thing is, I'm sort of here to oppose the Japanese understanding of the word, or it's also an English understanding of the word, but the idea that you have devotion to a singularity of path that justifies your giving attention to it. There's no point in putting any effort into anything unless you have a goal, is something that one of the girls in World Trigger said to Glasses Boy in one of the most recent episodes. So, you know what, Utter Self? The best currency of all is love, kindness. Mm-hmm. If we could just pay for everything with kindness and love, capitalism wouldn't be doing this massive harm to all of us that it's constantly doing.
You mean what kind of love do we mean?
I mean agape. That's Catholic love. Love for one's brothers. Love for one's fellow man. Agape. My heart is filled with agape.
Brotherly love.
And this person misunderstood and thought I was requesting that they send over a gaper. That's why there's this guy in our kitchen with his anus spread wide open. It's perfectly reasonable explanation. I said to somebody, I want agape, meaning Catholic love for humanity, and they thought I said gaper. It was an email. I may have accidentally put an R at the end.
Oh.
And a space between the A and the G. And the space between the A and the G. It could have happened. Was Eric Anderson truly AIDS skill Rex? I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that means. Will we need credit scores when love is currency? No. Everyone's kindness score will be 1,000. And nobody will ever have anything except good stuff happen. And everyone will have plenty of money. And we'll all live peacefully together.
Sarah ISMP, the first thing that came to my mind when I read your statement was that a stripper.
Was Eric Anderson truly AIDS skill Rex? Google
Schultz
it.
I'm not gonna shut up. No. Skrillex is not a type of electronic music. It's a dubstep.
There's nothing here that tells me anything about this. When I Google Eric Anderson AIDS skill Rex, or was Eric Anderson truly AIDS skill Rex, I get no, nothing.
this dude. He worked with Justin Bieber. I know who I'm talking about. But I don't know who Skrillex is.
Okay, so here's the thing. I was just about to complain about being told to Google it, okay? And I thought, you know what? No, I'm going to be introduced to lots of things. I continually am introduced to new things that I haven't heard of before. It's perfectly reasonable for me to Google it and get, rather than expect them to explain it to me. But when I Google it and I get no meaningful results, then that's annoying. So,
dubstep.
No, I am familiar with his work with Justin Bieber. Rachel and I have discussed that before, but I don't understand. No, I'm not going to try harder. I've already tried more than I wanted to try. AIDS, though, where's AIDS come into it? I don't know. Maybe eventually people will see that what they value isn't consistent with what makes them happy. Why do you think that what people value isn't consistent with what makes them happy? Which people are you talking about? Are you talking about yourself? Cedric Beachy, that's a claim that you certainly could make if you wanted to, that you note in yourself that you don't value ultimately what makes you happy. But to say that, to imply that people somehow in general need to see that what they value isn't consistent with what makes them happy would suggest that you have some sort of understanding about a general problem about the world, but and you might, that's certainly plausible to have such a problem or such an understanding, but that understanding is not an understanding about it's not a correct one, you know.
Whenever I think of Skrillex and like dubstep, I think of those like emo hardcore dancers. It's like a lot like that. Yeah.
I misunderstood dubstep to mean like that song, like I'm blue. Yeah.
No.
But that's not dubstep.
No.
I was wrong about that.
It's like Yay!
I made this, Octavia. It's about Fire Force.
They were once human too, free of fire like me and you. Then a light within ignites
Infernals. Jamaican dancehall, man.
So good. It's so dancey.
Yeah, welcome to Jamaican dancehall. Everybody put your hands up.
on top, heaven's the bottom. Return to the flame. If hell's on top, heaven's the bottom. Return to the flame. If hell's on top, heaven's the bottom. Return to the flame. If hell's on top, heaven's the bottom. Return to the flame.
Lawton. That's my Fire Force fan fiction, but it's music instead of fiction.
It's great.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And as far as other things I got going on in the works,
Yeah.
I got
I didn't want to disappoint you.
this in the works with no Vox at the moment. Without vocals, this is what this sounds like. This is still in multi-track form, so it's not been mixed or mastered. That's what they do in Fire Force, for instance, Mom. After they put someone to rest, they go, Latum.
Wait. I can hear it in my head. It sounds so different from like specifically to me.
I appreciate that.
Wow. That's so cool.
Sad, sad for me, sad for her, unhappily, and what you call sorrow, I call wrong. Words that sink straight down to the bone. Which is sad, sad for me, sad for her, unhappily, and what you call sorrow, I call home. Blues that sink clear down to the bone. Unhappily. Clear down to the bone. Still I'm sad, sad for me, sad for her, happily, and what you call sorrow, I call home. Blues I didn't include the vocals because they're all scratch vocal tracks. I'm not going to keep any of those vocals. They're all just so I could hear what it sounds like with the vocals. But just so you can hear what a little bit of it sounds like with vocals, I'll play the beginning of it again with the scratch vocals. The scratch vocals aren't very good. I mean, they're me just laying down something so I can hear what it sounds like.
Rooting here won't do any good. Rooting more and more my style.
Rachel's going to sing the main part
I
of this.
suspect your ways of standing where we stood, 'cause I've been stuck here a while. That's despite a natural selfishness that makes it easy to have fun. What flutters in the gut become a fist as all my visions come undone. I tried to stream, distract, and dream me after you away, but every news it seems is breaking fresh now every day.
For a bit, I am out of it. For reasons too unsaid.
But still I need expectorate. What's inside my head? like everybody's so sensitive and eager to just get mad. I think the simple ways of living like a kid, 'cause who wants to be the dad? Have we lost our sense of scope and scale? Our capacity to laugh? I sense to know when not to wail and have the typical day gap. I tried to stream distracted through the afternoon away, but having music seems as breaking fresh now every day. And for a bit, I am out of it. For reasons still unsaid, but still I need expectorate. The words inside my head. I really like this organ thing here.
I like that I'm hearing this.
Still I'm sad, so sad for me, sad for her unhappily, and what you call sorrow, I call home. Blues that sing clear down to the bone. Still I'm sad, so sad for me, sad for her unhappily, unhappily. What you call sorrow, I call home. Blues that sing clear down to the bone. Still I'm sad, so sad for me, sad for her unhappily, unhappily. What you call sorrow, I call home, etc. So anyway, that's what we're working on right now. I'm irritated by listening to right there, even because I don't like my vocals, the scratch vocals, which is why I played it first without any vocals. But once we get the vocals good, it'll sound good. I'm confident about it. And I think that's over 2 hours. I'm going to end the stream. Thank you for listening to. There's one more thing. Only one more thing I want to do, actually.
Thank you.
Only one more thing I want to do before we go is I want to play that song live with Rachel singing it so it sounds better.
Gosh.
Okay? Come on, Rachel. We could do this. It's going to sound better than those horrible scratch vocals I had. Yes, I'll bring up the words. Because it's not supposed to have me singing on the verses. It's supposed to have. Oops, let's say that. It's supposed to have Rachel on the verses and me on the choruses. Okay, and can you be in charge of scrolling down when we get to the bottom here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just brooding here won't do any good, but brooding's more and more my style. I seek the cheery ways of standing where we stood, 'cause I've been stuck here a while. And that's despite a natural selfishness that makes it easy to have fun. What flutters in the gut become a fist, and all my visions come undone. I've tried to string distractions through the afternoon away, but having new realities been burning every day, and for a bit I am out of it. The reason still unsaid, but still I need expectorate. The words inside my head. Seems like everybody's so sensitive, so ready to just get mad. I seek the simple ways of living like a kid, 'cause who wants to be the dad? Have we lost our sense of scope and scale? Our capacity to laugh? The sense to know and not to will, how to typically cast. I tried to
all sorrow I call home. Blues that sing clear down to the bone. The bone.
Still I'm sad.
Still I'm sad.
Sad for me.
Sad for me.
Sad
For her. Happily. Happily.
To all sorrow, I go home.
Blues that sing clear down to the bone. I'm sorry, Rachel. Once again, that's
Okay.
totally my fault.
Oh, good.
Okay, so we're still obviously working out how to play it well, but that's why I'm happy about this. Is unlike everything else I seem to do, I'm not rushing this process. We're taking our time with it and trying to get it right.
Yes. Have you not seen? Has it been that long, Octavia Silva? Right now, it's like at its most faded, and I like it a lot. Yeah, sea green.
Thank you, Octavia Silva. And somebody wanted to
Yeah.
eat my soul. My
you
soul
question
is
mark?
actually poisonous to almost everybody. Turns out I have an extraordinarily high concentration of thallium.
Thanks,
In my
Octavia
soul.
Silva. Ooh,
And-
Valium.
Yeah, thallium's pretty poisonous heavy metal. You're not going to want to eat my soul. It's very rich in thallium. I don't know how I got so much soul thallium, but I did. Most people would have killed them long ago, but I seem to have a natural immunity to thallium.
How lucky.
Just for everyone's reference, anybody else tries to nibble on my soul, be aware, unless you share my uniquely high tolerance for thallium, it might kill you. Goodbye.
Bye.